Alright, so the name of the game is effective. Today we are going to go over arm anatomy, we're going to go over the biceps and the triceps, and we're going to show you already effective movement patterns and show you how we optimize the effectiveness of those movement patterns. How we do that is changing the angles, changing a little bit the way that we use the machines, and ultimately our goal is to see if we can maximize engagement and optimize the results and effectiveness of every single movement that we do. In order to optimize training any muscle, I think it's really important for us to get a really intimate idea of what muscles that we want to engage and be really focused on, okay? So when it comes to the dominant part of the arm, it's a little bit different than what some people think. So it's actually the triceps brachii, the back of the arm, which comprises the majority of your arm. And then the biceps brachii is a little bit smaller of a muscle group, and of course we have our shoulders, and we have our flexors and extensors in our forearm. So again, in green we have the triceps, red we have the biceps, yellow I'm color coding in the deltoids, and then the forearms I color coded in blue. But again, as you can see, the triceps is the dominant part of the arm. So I'm going to cover 3 target exercises for the biceps and 3 for the triceps. Target exercise number 1 that we're going to maximize and optimize is going to be a standing alternating biceps curl. Something that I want to focus on with the standing bicep curl is that this is already a super effective way to train your biceps. One thing to keep in mind is that it's about at 90% of the range in which we feel the maximum contraction. So when we go all the way to the top, there's a little bit of turning off that happens. So the way that we're going to optimize that is by putting ourselves at an incline. So when we're in an incline, we can come all the way at the top and all the way at the bottom, and we have a maximum engagement throughout the entire duration of the movement. So I'm going to say that that is what 100% of the movement means. Now that I went over one exercise, I want to actually explain myself a little bit more. So I'm going to use this exercise to explain myself. So defining the term, so 90% versus 100%. This is something that I am going to refer to a lot. 90% would be 90% of the range where you would feel the most contraction, most engagement. 100% of the movement would be at all the way at the top of the movement. So that's how I'm going to kind of separate it out a little bit. Here is another thing that I want to go over, and that is that we want to try to maximize engagement throughout the entire duration of the movement. So in this particular situation, you'll see that there is maximum engagement throughout the entire range, at the bottom and all the way at the top when we put ourselves at an incline. Okay, so I'm going to go over that a little bit more, but optimizing biceps number 2, changing the angle up a little bit. Here is a barbell bicep curl, standing, super effective again, and here we are again at 90% of the range. That is where I feel the maximum engagement. I went all the way to the top and all the way down, that's usually what I do, but it's at 90% of that range in which I am feeling it the most. Okay, so the way that we're going to optimize this particular exercise is by taking it to a preacher curl. So barbell preacher curls, we're doing very similar movement pattern, but now by putting our elbows out in front, we are reaching maximum engagement at the bottom and also 100% at the top. Now optimizing biceps number 3. I'm going to show you some dumbbells versus cables. Here we have a biceps hammer curl exercise. Again, in the bicep hammer curl exercise, because I'm standing, again, here we are at almost all the way up. I'm feeling it. I feel pretty great engagement, but the biceps do turn off a little bit at the bottom, and then you get a little bit of the anterior delt at the top, unlike the cable rope hammer curls, in which, because there is a constant tension pulling, I'm getting engagement at 100% of the range, meaning all the way at the top and all the way at the bottom. I have the cable pulling against me, so there's a constant tension throughout the movement. So now we're going to switch gears to triceps. So changing the angle in a basic tricep extension movement. We get amazing engagement in the standing tricep extensions on the cables. It's great. You know, if you pull your shoulders back, you can really feel that in the back of your arm. However, there is a little bit of tension in the traps. So I would say at about 90% of the range is when you get the maximum engagement in the triceps, and all the way through, it does transfer a little bit to the traps. So how can we combat that just a little bit? Well, I do that by putting myself at a little bit of an angle. By putting myself at a little bit of an angle, I'm letting gravity help me out a little bit to keep myself out of my traps and make sure that at 100% of the range, I am right there in my triceps, and that is where I get the maximum tension, maximum engagement. Again, both are cables, so we get that great amount of tension all the way up and all the way down. So the second one is going to be, I'm going to show you dumbbells versus cables. So we have a unilateral dumbbell tricep extensions exercise here. Again, very effective. We have, the only thing working against us here is that because gravity is pulling us and we don't have tension pulling on from the weight, we are really at odds with gravity on this. So the way that we kind of can combat that is by switching this to a cable unilateral tricep extension exercise. Still leaning, still the same angle, but because there's tension coming in and coming out, I'm able to maximize that engagement all the way at the top of the movement. So I call that, again, I call that at 100% of the range, all the way at the top. So number 3, we're going to take a flat versus an incline. Okay, so skull crushers on a flat bench at a 90-degree angle, elbows right over the body. We get engagement in the triceps, back of the arms. It's great, but there's a little bit of transfer because we're on a flat bench. We have other things that come into the equation, and our muscles turn off a little bit when we get to the top of the range. So we do have to get to about 90% of the range to get full engagement, which is fine. I mean, we can just go to 90% of the range, but if we want to maximize the tension throughout the entire duration of the range, we can take this to an incline. And at an incline, we have that constant tension. So when the bar comes behind our head and we bring it up to the top, there's not one moment that I'm not feeling that tension in the back of my arms because gravity is pulling me and helping me along the way.